Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about zeroing your red dot with your magnifier. Okay, so this was a really big issue some 4, 5, 6 years ago when I first started researching red dots with magnifiers. Now, when I started shooting, everything was iron sights. Okay, so at some point, I started using red dots, and at some point I started putting magnifiers behind them, and of course it was a new thing for me, so I had to do some research. I went out there, I asked people their opinions. The general consensus about 6 years ago was that zero the red dot alone and then put the magnifier behind it. Okay, when I was doing that, what I found, I did a prior video on this. You can go back a couple of years, just look up a magnifier shift. What I found is that when I put the magnifier behind the red dot, I generally had about a 2.5 to a 3 inch shift. Okay, and people were like, when I would post about it, people were like screaming on the internet, parallax, parallax, blah blah blah. So I did other videos where I'm testing for parallax. I'm going to summarize all that in this video. Okay, we're going to talk about parallax. We're going to talk about canting the gun, all that stuff. Okay, so today I decided to let's test this out again. So I pulled out this Radical AR. I got this Holosun 510C. Okay, this is like my go-to red dot. I have found that this is the best for training beginners. This is the best for advanced shooters because it's got this big window. You're able to move around and shoot. Okay, you can be on the back of an ATV that's like bouncing around like that, right? And you can still track it and you can shoot. So this is like the best red dot as far as I'm concerned. Okay. It's comparable to the EOTech. I don't like the EOTechs because of the battery issues with them. They're more expensive. But even if it wasn't more expensive, this is just better because it's battery powered with solar. It's battery powered with solar power. One kind of backs up the other. So this is the best, most usable red dot as far as I'm concerned. Now, I usually shoot this with the Holosun 3x magnifier, and sometimes I'll put a 6x magnifier behind it. And I've done videos where I'm shooting out to 500 yards with this red dot and the magnet and the Vortex 6x. If you're interested, you can look up that video. So today I'm like, okay, let's get out to 50 yards, and we're gonna shoot this with the magnifier without the magnifier. Okay. Now this has optic on there was zeroed in with the magnifier behind it. Okay. Now I don't remember what ammunition I used or what the wind was doing that day, because when I shot it today with the magnifier, it did shift a little bit to the left, but that's fine. We're using that as a baseline. Okay. So I shot it with the first with the 3x, with the Holosun 3x, using this Wolf 193 ammunition. So using the 3x magnifier, I'm 1.5 inches down and 1.5 inches to the left. Now my point of aim is underneath the bullseye, okay? Because I'm going underneath it so that I have a fine aiming point. So I'm actually on the perfect elevation, right? Because the red dot's about that big, okay? So it's just, for whatever reason, it's off to the left, and that's fine. We're just gonna use that as an aim point. So I'm going underneath it. So because here's the thing, if I take the red dot and I put it on top of that, the red dot's like the size of my fist, and it's like, okay, where's the center? It's impossible. So that's why I put it underneath it, okay? So with the Holosun 3x, and again, we're just using this as as a reference point. I'm 1.5 inches down, 1.5 inches to the left, and then what I did is I put the Vortex 6x, okay, and that actually it climbed. So there I'm only 1/2 inch down, and then I'm still 1.5 inches to the left, okay. So I'm again, using that same aiming point, right, underneath this bullseye over here, right, I actually climbed a little bit. Now, these groups are tight enough over here that I can say that that's pretty accurate, because here's the thing, I mean, if the group was like a lot wider, I would say, well, there's, maybe the ammunition isn't that accurate, or maybe I'm not stable enough, but I've got like a 1 inch group there, and I got a 1/2 inch group there. So I can, I feel confident in saying that the 6X is shifting the point of impact about 1 inch higher. Okay, right. So going from the hollow sun 3X to the vortex 6X, my point of impact is shifting a ½ inch higher. Again, and we're ignoring the fact that it's off to the left because that just might be, that might be the ammunition I was using. It doesn't matter. The thing is, we're comparing, because we're not changing the zero on the gun. Okay, we're just using, we're using the same zero, whatever that red dot's zeroed for, and we're doing it with one magnifier, then another magnifier, and then no magnifier. Okay, so going from the 3X to the 6X, we're what did I say? We are 1 inch higher. Okay, so then I took off the magnifier, and now I'm just shooting the red dot. Now, interesting thing here is I actually couldn't use the triangle anymore. My first thing is I was gonna actually shoot without the magnifier right on top of this so that we could see the relative impacts to this. But the problem is that when I was looking at 50 yards, it was really hard for me to tell the difference between this bullseye, and then I was kind of getting confused with these markings I made over here. And the reason why I'm testing this at 50 yards, because I would prefer to do this at 100 yards, because then it would exaggerate the differences even more. The problem is that I can see at 100 yards, I can see this bullseye fine with a 6X, I can see it fine with a 3X, but I can't see it with in 1X. Okay, in 1X, if I'm shooting just a red dot in 1X, I kind of have to center on the paper. So we're not going to have that fine aiming point. So at 50 yards, that's the furthest I can get, okay, with my eyes, right, and be able to see this bullseye, okay, and have a good aiming point underneath it, okay. But I had to use a fresh paper because I was getting confused by these markings over here. So I went to this paper over here. First thing I had to do is I actually had to open up the bullseye a little bit more because this tip over here that I was using with the magnifier, I couldn't see the tip anymore. Okay, it was too small. So I had to make this a square so I could see it in 1X better. So I took my dot, I put it right underneath it, and I'm now, basically the first 3 shots I did was the one with this 1, 2, 3 over here. So the center of that is right there. I'm 3 inches down and about 1 inch to the left, okay? And I'm not, the 1 inch to the left, again, might just be the way I was, maybe, because remember, the red dot's big like this, so I'm not going to worry about that being 1.5 inches to the left, this only being 1 inch to the left. That just might be how I'm positioning my red dot. But what is significant here is that we have a significant drop. So here with the 3X, we're only down 1.5 inches. And here we're down 3 inches. So actually 2.5 inches. So here's the thing, this is better, right? If you go back and you look at the video that I did a couple of years ago, where I first zeroed with just the red dot and then put the magnifier behind it, the gap that I saw was something like 2.5 inches. Okay? So by zeroing with the magnifier, okay, and then removing it to shoot, I'm finding that the difference between these two, right? So that's 1.5 inches down. This is 2.5 inches. The shift is only 1 inch. Okay, the shift alone. Because remember, I'm holding underneath it here. So there's a 1 inch shift, which is a lot better than what I had last time. Okay, so I did some more tests with this. So when I shot the first 3 shots here with just the red dot, I shot it, and then I'm like, oh, wait a second. I forgot to check the cant on the gun, okay? The cant being if the gun is like a little bit left or right like that. So what I have found is like at distance, at 100 yards, 200 yards, that makes a difference if the gun is a little bit canted, okay? So at 50 yards, I'm like, okay, maybe I forgot to check the cant. I got a bubble level, put the bubble level right there so I can make sure that the gun is level to gravity, okay? Because what happens is if you don't have a bubble level, you end up leveling off to the shape of the earth, and that's not good enough. You got to level off to gravity because that's what the bullet is reacting to. So I threw a bubble level on over here. I shot it again. So with the bubble level, basically it's these 3 shots. 1, 2, 3. It's basically in the same area. Okay, I think I just dropped a little bit, but not significantly. I'm still in the same area. Okay, so there's definitely there's that 1 inch drop with just the magnifier versus when I was with just the red dot versus the magnifier. Okay, so then I said, okay, how about this whole parallax business? Okay, people. When back in the day, and I already did this before, so I knew what the results were going to be. People, like, if you tell them that there's a shift, they're screaming parallax, parallax. What they're saying is that when you're looking in the glass, okay, that the red dot is not centered in the glass; it's off on the one edge or the other edge or something like that. So what I did is I shot this again, okay. And this time, when I was looking, I actually, like, let me do it this way so you guys can look. I actually took my head and I moved it over so that this dot, right, or the circle dot, is all the way in the top left corner of this window over here. Okay, so I intentionally pushed the parallax out to this this high left corner over here. Okay, so I'm trying to test to see what the effect is of this parallax. And that's a large window, right? That's a large window. So the effect of the parallax is going to be amplified because it's a larger window. Okay, so that's these shots over here. 1, 2, and 1 in there. So it looks like it shifted like maybe a 1/4 inch to the left. Okay, at 50 yards. Okay, so that was the effect at 50 yards. So 1, the ones without the circle. 1, 2, and then there's 1 in there. All right, so parallax is obviously not an issue here, right? Because, like I said, I intentionally threw the parallax to that high left corner over there. That's as far off as I could be, and we're just seeing like a 1/4 inch shift to the left. Okay, that's not going to account for this large for the difference I saw from here to here. Okay, so I said the next thing I did, I said, hey, let's also test this out. Completely canting the gun. Okay, so I shot it one more time, and this time I had the gun basically like this. Okay, which I knew was going to push the bullets that way. I had it like this at 50 yards, and I threw it off. And I know at 100 yards you can throw it off like an inch. I said, let's see what it does at 50 yards. So at 50 yards, and it did shift it. Okay, I see I got these holes here, 1, 2, and the third one was like somewhere in there. So it moved it about center. The center is about a quarter. So it moved the center about a 1/4 inch to the right. Okay. So when I parallaxed it way to the high left, it went a 1/4 inch to the left. This time it went a 1/4 inch to the right. With all that shit that I did, okay, the whole group is still like 1.5 inches, okay? With all that stuff, with all that testing I did, right? Because I'm holding onto there. All right, the whole thing is still 1.5 inches, okay? So that is not making that big of a deal, okay? And over here, with going from 3x to 6x, yeah, the 6x shifted it up. But again, there's looking at the whole group, including the 3x and 6x, I got 1.5 inches difference at 50 yards. Okay, so that's not making that big of a difference. The biggest difference that we see, okay, is when I shot it with a magnifier, and it didn't matter whether it was a 3x or 6x, because the 3x to 6x only moved it about the center, only moved it about 1 inch, probably less than that, about 1/2 inch. So, but if we look at the center of this, which is about there, with the magnifier, it is about 1 inch and 1.125 down. Okay, it's 1.125 inches down. All right. Again, now looking at the total group now, with all that shit I did earlier, without the magnifier. Okay, so that the center of that whole group is about 2 3/4 inches down. Okay. So the biggest difference was having the magnifier or not having a magnifier. Okay, that was the thing that seemed to make the biggest difference. Not if I was parallaxing all the way to the left, not if I was canting the gun all the way to the right. It was whether there was a magnifier on it or there not being a magnifier on it. Now, because I originally zeroed this gun in with the magnifier behind it, the difference that we saw, let's look at the difference again. So on average, it's about the difference is about 2 inches down, which is less than the difference I saw the first time I did this, or the first video that I did on this, where I was like almost 3 inches off, and that's because I had zeroed it without the magnifier and then added the magnifier to it. Okay? So reasons why I think that would happen. Okay, why would I be more off if I'm zeroing without the magnifier? Okay, well, first of all, if I'm zeroing without the magnifier, okay, again, there's limitations to my eyes. Okay, so even if for some theoretical reason, okay, which I don't know or understand, but if for some theoretical reason zeroing with the red dot alone is better, it doesn't apply to me because my eyes aren't that good. When I look at the red dot by itself, okay, I see a starburst. I don't see a fine dot. Okay, and then there's also the issue that at 50 yards, I'm also having a hard time seeing the bullseye. Okay, so number one, the dot itself isn't that clear to me. Number two, the bullseye itself is not that visible to me. I mean, it was reasonably visible, but it's not as visible as when I'm using the magnifier. Okay, so when I'm using the red dot with the magnifier to 0, okay, everything is so much clearer. The red dot is more clear because there's a diopter in the back that I can focus. Okay, so the red dot itself is more clear, and I can see the bullseye more clear. So practically speaking, it makes more sense to zero with the magnifier behind the red dot. Okay, because when you remove it, I mean, if there is a point of aim, if there is a shift, right? If there is a shift, it's not going to be that much. Okay. Now, also, if you're thinking about it, okay, if you're shooting at distance, right, and you got your magnifier on, okay, you need to be more. I mean, this has to be dead on, right? If you're shooting at distance, but I mean, why would you flip the magnifier off? The only reason I would flip the magnifier off is if I'm inside of 100 yards. Okay, so if I'm inside of 100 yards and I'm trying to hit here, well, it doesn't matter if I'm like 3 inches high or 3 inches low. So it doesn't matter, practically speaking, inside of 100 yards, if there is a slight impact shift, right, or aiming shift or whatever. It doesn't matter if there's like a 1 or 2 or even 3 inch shift inside of 100 yards, because even if you're aiming at a small target, 2 or 3 inches this way, you're still in that area. Okay, but at distance at 200 yards and 300 yards, it's more important, right? It's more critical that the magnifier and your red dot and how you're using it is all in tune with itself. Okay, it's less of an issue inside of 100 yards if it's off by 2 inches. Okay, so those are my thoughts on that. Oh, other thing I want to add real quickly, these adjustments here on the magnifier, these don't adjust your zero. Okay, you use the red dot, right, even when you have the magnifier on behind it, right? Get the magnifier back down behind it. Okay, so you got your magnifier on here. Okay, by the way, I've really come to love these Picatinny rails that go all the way across the top. I mean, it does add a little bit of weight, but I've come to like it because, I can throw on a light up here, a pistol light, and that's easy on, easy off. I don't need it. I take it off. I got my backup sights here. Okay, I don't need them. I take them off. I've done separate videos where I'm actually shooting at 100 yards with the iron sights in that position. They work good enough. Okay. Okay, so I found that this is a good spot to put the bubble level in to make sure your cant is not off, and then you can put your magnifier back here. Okay, and the magnifier needs, because with the magnifier there's eye relief issues. So you kind of have to start from the back and move your way forward. So the magnifier has to be in the right position for your eye relief, and then the red dot's just going to be in front of it, and then the rest of the stuff goes wherever it goes. Because again, the backup sights are just backup sights. Okay, and remember, down here, right, you can have an Allen key. So if you need to move these at some point, you can move them. Okay, so that's where you put an Allen key in the grip. Okay, so you can move these down the road if you need to move them. Okay, if you need to remove the bubble level, you can remove it. Okay. You can have a backup battery in your grip. Okay, so I have found that this is a very practical way to set up this rifle. But what I started saying is, when you put the magnifier behind here, you use the adjustments on the red dot to adjust your zero. And these adjustments over here are for centering the reticle, okay, your dot or your circle dot, whatever you have. Because what happens is when you look through here, initially the dot might be all the way to the right or all the way to the left, okay, and so you're going to adjust this to you're going to adjust this to center. And I did a separate video where I'm sitting here after I've got a zero on this. I'm turning these and I'm shifting the reticle all the way to the right or all the way to the left. That then changed the zero. Okay, so this is the adjustments on your magnifier are purely for centering your reticle so that it appears in the center of your scope, basically. Okay, as opposed to being all the way to the right or all the way to the left. So that's what these adjustments here are for. Okay, this is kind of like a consolidated video of stuff I've covered in the past. If you guys, again, the reason why I'm doing this is because of a recent discussion I had in the comments, and I said, hey, let's do an updated video. And I've got a lot more experience underneath my belt shooting rifles with red dots and magnifiers. By the way, I mean, I've got tons of LPVOs. I shoot almost every day. This setup over here, okay, this is my go-to. Okay, this isn't my go-to gun because I use this to train people, but this is my go-to setup. The red dot with the magnifier. This is going to satisfy 80% of your needs in SHTF. Okay, so if you're up close, you just flip this off to the side. You can move. You need to shoot distance. You're here. Okay, so LPVOs with more magnification offer a nice advantage if you're shooting past 400 yards to 400 to 600 yards. However, most of the time you're going to be inside of 300 yards. Okay, so I've come to really believe in the 80% rule of setting up your gun primarily to satisfy 80% of your needs. Okay, that gets settled first. Okay, and the red dot and the magnifier is going to settle that. The magnifier needs to be on there because within that 80%, okay, even if you're just shooting at 100 yards with the magnifier, I can see behind the tree. I can see what somebody's holding. If they're holding a pistol, I can see a hand or something. So even at close distance, the magnifier is going to be used. Okay, so that's within this 80% of your needs. Red dot and your magnifier. Okay, so this is like a definite. This is like if you only got one AR-15, that's what you set it up with. Red dot, magnifier behind it, and then you see, okay, what else do you have space for? Okay, so you got to have a sling, right? So this is set up. QD's here to take a sling. You're gonna want a light. Okay, I like a light that goes easy on, easy off. That's why I like the pistol lights that just basically clamp onto the top here. In the daytime, I just take it off. I don't need the extra weight out there. I have found I've got other AR set up with pressure pads and lights on the left side and stuff like that, but they add more weight, and if you're not using the light, it's just it's just extra weight that you don't need. So I like to and here's the thing: the lights usually way like towards the end of the gun, where it's adding extra weight at the place where you're gonna feel it the most. So the light is the first thing I want to get off the gun if I'm not going to be using the light. Okay. I like these Magpul. These small. These are expensive. They're like something like $100 each, right? I do like these small ones because they're light, and I can put them here, and they're out of the way. And basically, I put the 3-slot rail there that acts as an anchoring point, right? And what I find is I put my thumb basically in front of this this front sight there, which also acts as an anchoring point. So So that's, my thumb goes over the top here, middle finger goes there. So that works pretty good for me, okay? The bubble level, I just added this on today. I've got a small one. This is the one from CB Life. This is the big one. I'm gonna move this to a different gun with an LPVO. I'm gonna put a smaller one on here, and this nicer, bigger one is gonna go on an LPVO gun that I use at distance more often. But these two things here, they don't add a whole lot of weight. So that's, you know, especially if you're gonna be, so having the iron sights in this position where it's not in my way is a good thing. I'm not gonna, you know, like put the iron sight back here where I lose my magnifier, right? Because again, that's something that I'm not gonna use. So that gets low priority, okay? Same thing, I'm not gonna move this iron sight up here. That's where I like putting my light and manipulating it with my thumb over the top of it. Actually, let me go get the light. I can show you guys. Okay, just in case you guys haven't seen the older videos. Hold on, let's go get the light. All right, so first thing, I got the sling on it. I got this fast loop sling here, which is really great. This is really good if I want to, you know, if I want to basically wrap this around my arm, right? So this has lots of uses. It gives you retention. I've got a QD socket installed over here to the outside, right? So this way it helps control the gun. And then what that does is, if I want to do a left side transition, I can come over to this side, do a left side transition without this choking me, right? By this being on the outside of my stock. Okay, I set the sling up at the two far ends, so if I'm walking through the woods, I can basically just tighten this up, hold my back. This is the easiest way to walk through the woods. And if I need to recover it, put my thumb there, pull this around, okay, get back on target. Okay, so this is really practical. Now, as far as the light, okay, take a pistol light. This goes on the top over here. Okay, tighten it down. Okay, and there we go. All right, so now I got a light here. Okay, so that's really on. This is really, right? Yeah, and when I'm looking through this, this looks like an A2 post, right? This looks like a typical front sight post. So, you know, and like I said, I don't need this extra weight over there in the daytime unless I think I'm going to be going into a building or something. So I like that this just comes off and lightens up the gun. Okay? So this you put in your back pocket, put in your pocket. So this is the, you know, I mean, I shoot every day, different scenarios. This is really practical, okay? So the magnifier, you're definitely going to use. That's like, you know, your red dot is like first priority. Magnifier is your second priority, you know, of course, after having ammo and magazines and that stuff like that. But yeah, red dot, then magnifier, then you figure out where the rest of the stuff's going to go on the gun, okay? So drop some comments below. Let me know what you guys think. I'll talk to y'all soon.